Hey guys, hope you and your families are doing well. Welcome back to the weekly video where I take you through stocks in the IBD 50 list that I think are displaying constructive basing action, cup and handles, VCPs, flags, Darvis boxes potentially forming, and also have impressive relative strength and tick many of the CANSLIM criteria. So we usually do these videos and the Market Smith Growth 250 videos on the daily chart. Thought we'd mix it up a little bit for the 17 stocks and go for on the weekly chart so we can pay more attention to some of the fundamentals. In particular, I'm going to be focused on the earnings per share, the estimates for the next couple of years, whether the forward guidance was increased as well, and then taking a look at the earnings of sales, if there's any higher quality higher quality growth fund, or if we see sequential growth as well in terms of the quarter over quarter fund ownership. Market Smith is the sponsor of this video. If you're interested in a discounted trial, there is a link in the comments below. So let's start off with TWI. If you want to see the stocks I'm going to be going through, I've pinned that to the top comment. So first and foremost, relative strength impressive here. The blue line is versus the market S&P, and then the green line is actually versus the stock zone industry group. So when you're looking at these relative strength lines, ideally you want to see it strong versus the market and strong versus the industry group. That means the stock is a leader within its own industry group. So potential cup and handle with a low handle forming here. Remember that we had a bearish reaction, I called it bearish synchronicity, to the CPI report and also the FMC last week. So stocks that are holding up well and potentially having strong closes as we look at this video now. Impressive relative strength. I'm probably trying to tell you something. So potential low pivot. Obviously, I need these to set up perfectly. If you want to know what I'm looking for in terms of a perfect setup, there's loads of loads of other videos on the channel. Estimates look really good next couple of years. With the estimates up, you've got 7 quarters in a row of triple digit earnings. Looks nice and strong. Celsius, I think I blabbered on about this one a lot on the Market Smith Growth 250 recent video, but I think it's really strong. I think non-alcoholic beverage companies over the last couple of decades, especially during bear markets, a couple of them have built very impressive bases. You think Coca-Cola, you think Monster Beverage, maybe a Celsius is going to be taking that mantle. But I'm looking here on the weekly chart as a potential big cup and handle. Just needs to tighten up. 3 high quality growth funds moving in. RS lines look good. Sales are high. Earnings have been pretty good for 3 out of the last 4 quarters. We obviously like to see back in there with triple digit earnings coming through and preferably triple digit sales as well. Box. So impressive relative strength lines versus the market, versus its own industry group. High quality growth fund established a position in recent quarters. Steady Eddie, but certainly a game-changing year here in terms of the earnings per share estimates. Up 38% for 2023, and then 2024 plus 26% with the revisions up. Nice to see. Very consistent and accelerating earnings, and the sales pretty good around the mid-teens level. So this looks pretty interesting. You can see a bit of VCP action. See how it's starting to build these high lows. You have a clustering of key moving averages starting to break out there. So maybe it can tighten up in coming sessions, coming weeks, so I can look down to again. I'm looking for those areas on the chart where I get what I call trigger bars, really tight, pulling into key moving averages, nice sideways to down movement, volume dry up, all of that good stuff. SMCI. So this stock under a little bit of pressure, but potentially pulling back to the 50 SMA. So it'll be interesting whether this finds supportive action. Now it's got triple digit sales for the last 3 quarters. It's triple digit earnings, sorry, last 3 quarters. Sales have been accelerating, 41, 51, 53, 79. Probably a company you've never heard of as well. Really impressive relative strength line. So it'll be interesting whether it can bounce off the 50, potentially set up a low pivot as well. Obviously, I'll be using a combination of timeframes, monthly, weekly, daily, and 1 hour is where I focus. But I'll be looking for really tight action as you can see here, really tight action as you can see here. But interesting one, game-changing year there in terms of this year's or next year's earnings share estimates. Another semi stock, well, the first semi-stock I should say, is LSCC. So very consistent here in terms of the earnings, the sales that are high, some high quality growth funds initiating and increasing their positions net overall. RS lines are turning up, good to see, and I'm starting to see a potential cup and handle. Needs a little bit more work here, a little bit more sideways movement, but this one could be interesting if we see a handle form. Really like the estimates coming through this year, plus 65%, full guidance up, and the same in 2023 with the estimates up 15% and the full guidance up as well. Something to be looking at is the earnings per share growth rate. So on a 3 to 5 year look back, earnings per share growth rate 60% with an ROE of over 17% is very good. 38% here is very good. So interesting one of the strongest semiconductors. Again, AMD and Nvidia have been kind of the leaders in the last a decade or so, but they've been very weak this year. We're nearly closing out the year. So again, I think there's going to be some new leadership in terms of the semiconductors. So want to be dialed into them. One stock that is potentially showing a lot of leadership quality is AEHR. So it's now in the IBD 50 list as well. It's been in the Market Smith Growth 250 list, but it's now in the IBD 50 list, which is great. You've got 4 quarters of triple-digit earnings. Sales look pretty high as well. Look at these RS lines, and on the weekly chart, it's a deep cup and handle, but potentially a cup and handle. And on the daily chart, potentially more of a flag type pattern, potentially finding support around the 50 SMA, which is this well, it's not the 10-week moving average, is this red line here, but that ties in with 50 on the daily chart. So it'll be interesting if we see institutions stepping in around the 10-week line, which is the 50-day moving averages on the daily, and we see a potential pivot point. But good estimates coming through, good earnings, good sales. Looks like an interesting one. What I like as well, has a history of being able to run. See how it tightened up here, see how the volume dried up, then a really big run, it tightened up there as well on the daily chart. So an interesting one, certainly one I got my eyes on. Phase NG, I think solar, next 3 stocks are solar stocks. I think solar looks really interesting over the next 5 year, 10 years. I think it's going to be an area where we see significant growth. Phase Energy, in terms of the CANSLIM criteria, I think is the leading stock, potentially a big base here, showing relative strength versus the market, versus its own industry group. Energy Solar is currently the 2nd ranked industry group. Triple-digit earnings for the last 2 quarters, sales accelerating 46, 68, 81. Estimates look really good, kind of a game-changing year there as well. Fidelity increasing their position in the most recently reported quarter. Phase Energy looks very strong. Show you a couple others. SHLS. Now this is newer in terms of an IPO. Any stock that's really IPO'd, unless it's MBLY, that's doing okay. Actually, that's kind of autonomous related. Should I show you that one? This one looks interesting. Here's a little kind of side one, but this stock here looks interesting. It's AI related technology for driving assistance systems. I think it looks interesting. Fairly choppy down here in terms of an IPO base. I couldn't find an entry there, but it's showing a lot of relative strength. You can see that by the RS lines. If this can tighten up, that looks very interesting as well. But most stocks that have IPO'd last 18 months, nearly pushing 2 years, have really struggled, entered phase 4 declines. So it's a little bit harder to see. I'll actually go onto the daily chart for you guys on this one. So gaps up here on the earnings. I think they then did a secondary offering here. Find support on the 50s, now bouncing. So potential for a low pivot point in the high 20s underneath $30, something like that. And then maybe we could see a cup and handle form there. Estimates look really good over the next couple of years. So these solar stocks I think are interesting. Another solar stock, which is Solar Edge, building potentially a big base. Now on the face of it, in terms of reported earnings, sales, things like that, it doesn't look as strong, nor do the relative strength lines as an Phase Energy, but strength it can obviously change. Earnings, sales can obviously change as well. But what I think is interesting is in the context of a bear market, this stock has pretty much gone sideways. The bear market for growth stocks really started in Q1 of 2021, so we're around about 22 months into a growth bear market, actually. So potentially building a nice big basis. So I like this. I like the size of the causality given the context of the market as well. You can actually see a quasi cup and handle type pattern. Stock formed here and then trended pretty well, and then this was obviously COVID, but then after that trended well. So some of these solar stocks have a history of being able to trend well. That's important for me as well. I want to know how do the stocks move, and I want them to be kind of cleaner movers for how I manage positions. And what I like, this is TAN, so this is the sector ETF. So you will not see a sector ETF that trends as well as TAN did. It's rare to see this. So I really like that the sector ETF can have these nice clean moves. See how clean this is, just riding basically the 50 SMA and then a bearish synchronicity change of character. That was it. But potentially TAN starting to display some VCP action, some higher lows, potentially a low pivot, break of a downward trend line. RS lines have been turning up. So I just think I'm really into, not kind of really into solar, it depends on the charts, but I get a little bit excited about some of the bases that I'm seeing in the solar stocks, and kind of from a macro perspective as well. The changes we could be seeing, positive changes I think for solar. DE, so this one here, much more of a steady eddy, much slower mover as well, but I can't not be paying attention to this. See the RS lines turning up there, higher quality growth fund increasing their positions, some have been marginally decreasing their positions as well, so a little bit of a mixed bag there. But the estimates up for 2023 plus 20% with the guidance up, earnings accelerating 20, 16, 81, nice to see, sales accelerating 5, 11, 22, 37. So it's an interesting one. Potential cup and handle. Needs a little bit more work in the handle. I think with like a DE, I'd rather buy it closer to the 50 SMA than near the 10 EMA and the 21 EMA. So it's on the radar, but I think for a slower mover like this, I'd more so like having the 50 there. CPRX. This is a biotech stock, so I think biotechs are interesting. Now, obviously, there aren't many biotechs which have earnings and sales on the table. So when there is, and when there's a very strong stock that's also in the IBD 50 list, I'm paying attention to it, aren't I? Especially if it's a constructive base. So RS lines versus the market versus the industry group, very good. Earnings accelerating, sales accelerating as well. Estimates look good and forward guidance up, which is fantastic to see. Earnings share growth rate, 3 to 5 year look back, 54% with an ROE of 31%, really good. Comp rating of 99, strong stock, isn't it? So this one here, potential for a quasi cup and handle. It needs a little bit more work in here. A relatively weak close last week, so again, this is one that needs more work. But some of the biotech stocks look really good. AXSM looks pretty darn strong. Let me go on to the daily chart. I'll just show you a couple of biotechs that are on my radar. Potential high tight flag, really good reaction here. You've got some really nice volume footprints coming in on this stock as well, with what I call bullish synchronicity days. So finding support now on the 10 EMA, found it in here. So potential for a high tight flag around $80, high 70. This is one on my radar. If this can tighten up, looks very interesting. AKRO is another one. It's actually now got the 50 SMA here. There was a nice little low pivot coming through in there. I just wanted a bit of a better market, but really strong biotech stock as well. PRCX I've forgotten the name of it. PRVB. There's a lot of strong biotech stocks. I'm trying to remember them. PRVB is one of them. Again, nice volume footprints coming in here. Look at all these bullish synchronicity candlesticks. Big shakeout in here. Now can stocks like this start finding support? Trigger bars around the 1021 EMA. These look really interesting. There's a lot of strong biotech stocks. So let's get back on schedule. Let's go for MedP, which is a medical research related company. Let's go on to the weekly chart. So earnings accelerating, sales accelerating as well. Estimates look good. 2022 plus 45% with the estimates up. ROE good. Earnings share growth rate good. Comp rate good. 96, and a potential cup and handle starting to go sideways on the handle. 50 SMA is catching up, which is that red line in there, which is a 10 week on the weekly chart. I keep forgetting we're on the weekly chart. So if this can create a little handle in there, that could look pretty interesting. CMC, metal production and fab related stock. RS lines look good versus the market, versus the industry group. Now the earnings are very good, the sales are good. Not so impressed with the estimates here, but the earnings share growth rate is good, the ROE is good, and the stock is currently very strong. Has a history of being able to build out a decent base in there and then go on a good trend. So this is one on my radar. Potential cut with a very high handle forming. It's an interesting one. 50 SMA 10 week is catching up in there. So yeah, it's one. It's not the one I'm most excited about, but it's certainly one on the IBD 50 list. I think it's interesting. There are still some oil and gas stocks, some commodity stocks kicking about, which are showing some strength, especially the oil field services stock. Let me just show you two of them. So oil field services within the oil and gas is looking pretty strong. 9 is one of them. You can see how strong this looks here on the weekly chart. Earnings most recent quarter 176, sales plus 80%, and then estimates for 2023 plus 235%. Game changing year here with the forward revisions up as well. You get onto the daily chart. This is looking interesting. Bounces off the 21, bounces off the 21. Potential pivot point for a high tight flag pattern around $10. Nice psychological number as well. If that can just tighten up in there, and look how good this move is in here. So that's one of the oil and gas field services stocks. So yeah, there's some interesting ones kicking about. But in terms of some of the bigger market cap ones, this is EQNR. Let's load this one up like that. There we go. So you can see the higher lows here. So it's got some constructive VCP action. See how it's putting in high low, high low, high low. RS lines overall pretty good. Earnings for the last 7 quarters, triple digits. Sales for the last 6 quarters, nearly triple digits as well. So strong stock. You've got a clustering of key moving averages there on the weekly chart. So this is one. Keeping an eye on it. I do think oil and gas stocks pretty hard to trade. I'd rather trade some of the quicker ones, potentially building high tight flags. But yeah, it's definitely one I'm keeping an eye on either way for feedback. Wing, potential deep cup and handle type pattern forming in here, starting to go sideways. So nice bit of Davis box action. The 50 SMA is there, which is a 10 week line, which is this black line here. Estimates look good for the next couple of years, or this year and next year, with forward guidance up. Earnings accelerating, sales accelerating as well. Interesting one. High quality growth funds. Some of them have been initiating positions in recent quarters. Interesting, isn't it? So that's one on the radar. TS, this is a steel producer. Potential cup and handle forming in here. So starting to go sideways. The red line, which is the 10-week, is there. That's the 50 SMA on the daily chart. Estimates look good, sales look good, earnings look good as well. If this can just go sideways, create that really tight bar. So all of these I'm looking for really tight bars. The volume dry way up, sitting there on one or more key moving averages, preferably across multiple time frames as well. So asymmetric reverse wall trades where I think I can at least mitigate the risk very quickly, and then see if I can sit for those intermediate term trends. I'm an intermediate term trend follower. Last one. So this one here is Performance Food Group. PFGC is the ticker. RS lines trending up nicely. High quality growth fund initiated in Q1 of this year, added in Q2, added in Q3. Sales look good. 82, 50, 57, 42. You may say, oh, they're declining. They're still pretty darn high. And then if you take a look here at the earnings, they look pretty good. Triple digits the most recent quarter. Get a bit of a game-changing year here in terms of 2023 estimates, plus 42% with the guidance up as well. And then for 2024, plus 18% with the guidance up. And then what I like from a basing standpoint in the context of a bear market is the size of this base. So I'm a believer in the cause and effect relationship. This is potentially a very big cause being built here. Now, if you then look at this, needs a little bit more work potentially there in the handle, but certainly one I'm looking for, maybe around $60, but likely to take a little bit of time, this one, but looks fairly interesting. Let's just drop down onto the daily chart. So you can see the strength here coming through on the recent earnings report. That's interesting. Shakeout underneath the 10 EMA, now starting to find support around the 1021 EMA. So again, like I said, needs a little bit more work here, a little bit more time, a couple of weeks just going sideways. But the ones that are showing a lot of relative strength in this market, the IBD 50 list, the market growth 250 list, is likely to pick up many of those leading stocks. But you've got to be tracking them, monitoring them on a day-to-day basis, which stocks are basing out, which ones are displaying fantastic relative strength, and tick the majority of CANSLIM characteristics. So that's it, guys. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for listening to me rabbit on, and I look forward to seeing you next one.